Hello, class. I wanted to talk just a little bit about Cometbus. This will be a fairly short video, so don't worry, it's not going to be a 20-minute lecture on the history of zines. I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about this one in particular. So, as I mentioned before, the zine came out in 2009, and it follows a number of punks who are in the fictional St. Louis punk scene. So in this story, what you see is the main character, the main narrator, who moves through these people's lives. He comes in as somebody who's basically dropped off in this scene and then navigates his way through this scene. And if you want to think of this as a story that is connecting different parts of the punk scene with other parts in a national level, I think that'd be fair to categorize this in that way. There's a number of ways we can actually look at this. One of the ways we could look at this is as a standard novella, and one of the ways that I see this is connected to a lot of other literature that's out there. There's a number of stories about large groups of people that are that have numerous characters that come in and out of the story, play different roles, and then it wraps up, in the end. And the best examples I can give you would be the ones that I've mentioned before. John Steinbeck, I think, is probably one of the best similarities that we can see to this. There's lots of other ones, but those are some of the best that I can think of. He has two novels, Tortilla Flat and Cannery Row, which, while they're not the same, they certainly they are fairly similar. There's another author, a Caribbean writer of Indian descent, V.S. Naipaul, and he has a story in particular that's very similar, in these capacities too. So those are just a couple examples. But anyway, I wanted to talk about this one. So in this issue of Cometbus, and remember, he has numerous issues, so not every issue is a novel. In fact, a lot of them aren't novels, but this one just happens to be. A novel is a work of fiction. And in this one, we have this punk who is stranded in St. Louis, and then from there moves through several years within this scene. He becomes close to a lot of the people who are in the scene, and largely what becomes the issue as the story progresses is the way that the punks in the scene are interacting with the community around them. If you want to think of them in the terms that he uses through their opportunists being one of the big ones, I think that's probably fair. One of the terms that I've used a few times would be some of the bloodsuckers, the people that are pulling everything out of the scene but aren't really giving anything back to the scene. And that would be probably, for the most part, people that are on the outside, but also a lot of folks on the inside as well, that just like within your circle of friends, within your communities, that you probably have people that are close to you, that are good people, but aren't necessarily contributing to the bigger picture. And the way the narrator is seeing punk and the way the narrator is seeing the importance of punk is that it is a community. In any community, then you're going to contribute to what other people are doing. So if you're not contributing to what you're doing, then you're just taking, from them. Everybody takes from their community at some point. There are very few people that just give, and never take anything back. Even in that giving, that altruism that comes along with giving, that quite often what we get back from that is a personal satisfaction in the giving, or knowing that this will come back around. So I don't want to paint anybody here as a saint or as terrible sinners too. These people are generally just living their lives, but the author is seeing the community as something that everyone should be contributing to, and many of the people in here aren't. Or the way he's seeing the community, the punk community, is as something that has bigger possibilities. He sees the inspiration, and these people are inspired by them at different times, and in some ways sees more potential in them than they see in themselves. And he says as much at a couple points in here. And where it becomes disappointing for the author is, for the narrator, I should say, where it becomes disappointing for the narrator is that not only is the community not living up to its possibilities, but it's treating punk as something that has been a part of their lives instead of something that is and always will be a part of their lives. So they've already, towards the end of the story, we see this as a part of their past, a part of their youth, punk night, at the local bar, instead of something that just is what it is. Punk night would be every night if this were a story that was panning out in the way that the narrator is hoping to. So but it's not. So the story, the narrator has a number of frustrations, with the characters in here, and largely because he sees them, as part of his community, but then seeing them as people that are coming in the community and then often are coming out of the community, going back out into the community and turning into normal people, for lack of a better term. So this is where a lot of the frustration comes in the story, and this is where the novel itself goes. So it's an interesting portrayal of all these characters. There's a number of characters in here. So if you are still going through the text, what I would suggest you do is that you get a piece of paper and then you write down the characters, what they're doing, what their role is in the story, and that might help you to follow along with everything that's happening in here. But otherwise, it's I find it's a great read. It's a nice read for me as I'm sitting on the porch going through this once again, for the umpteenth time, and I find myself just as engaged in the story as I was the first time I read it. So at any rate, I hope you're doing well, and let me know if you have any questions. Hopefully this helped you.